welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. I wanted to talk a little bit about relationships today in a couple of contexts. So in the context of ROCD and also in the context of people pleasing in relationships. So as always, I'm gonna kind of go with real life examples from myself because I think it's good for you guys to hear real life situations that you can relate to. So in the past 6 months or so, I would say all of my relationships are different. And I put a lot of that down to feeling much better OCD wise and no longer feeling the need to either stay in relationships that aren't healthy, aren't making me feel good, and also to just not always putting like constant effort in because I feel like I have to, and then those relationships like naturally deteriorating. So previously I would kind of hang on to relationships and you know, and this can be intimate or friendships or family or anything, and I would try and put so much effort into that because I wanted to be liked and I wanted the relationships to be successful because I thought if the relationship was successful then that somehow indicated that I was good because I was able to keep relationships, keep friendships, and that I don't think that's the case at all now. I think you shouldn't have to work really, really hard one-sidedly for a relationship when, you know, it's just clearly not a good relationship, good friendship. If I look at my relationships over the past 6 months to a year, they are very different. My friendship group's different. My relationships with majority of my family members are different. My relationships with colleagues are different. Everything is completely different, and that's because I was always very much a yes person because I wanted to be liked and I wanted people to think of me as, you know, oh, she'll sort everything out, she'll do everything. And, you know, I mean, it could be seen as I've become more selfish if I were to look at it in like a negative way. But I think I've just become better at like realising what I like and what's for me, and I don't feel the need to please other people all the time and make other people feel better in spite of how I feel. So yeah, I just think it's, and the way this ties in with our OCD is I don't want anyone to see this as me saying, oh, well, if you're not happy in your intimate relationship, cut it off, because that's definitely not what I'm saying. Because in the case of things like our OCD, obviously it's really hard to tell what you actually want because OCD hijacks your gut feeling. But what I am saying is just staying in friendships, for instance, that aren't beneficial in any way to your life because you feel like you have to, or you want to be liked, or a fear of being alone. That was a big one. Like I always thought if I didn't stay in certain intimate relationships, friendships, that I would be on my own and I wouldn't find other people, and you know, because of that I would stay in situations that I wasn't entirely happy in because I felt like I didn't want to be on my own. Whereas now I absolutely love my own company. I love it. I've made lots of new friends. Like I have a great group of friends, and relationship wise, I'm intimate relationship wise, I'm so happy being on my own now in a way that I never thought I would be, because I always felt like I had to have someone to kind of cling to and kind of that would help me with things and that would, you know, give me not only reassurance in an OCD sense, but just reassurance in the sense that I am a good person and like I can hold on to a relationship which increases my value as a person. And now I don't think anything like the way I used to think. Like it's such a big difference to the way I used to think, and it's a much healthier way of thinking. Like there's no relationship, there's no friendship that could make me feel anxious about losing it, because I know that just happens. And yes, sometimes it's really upsetting, of course it is, but life moves on, and you can create better relationships, and you can, you know, enjoy spending time by yourself. That there's no instance in which a relationship is that important that you need to like revolve your life around it. There's no relationship that's important enough. You know, the only person that you're guaranteed to be with for your entire life is yourself. So making yourself miserable for the sake of others is just pointless, because they might not be there in a year's time. Whereas, you know, if you're fortunate enough to be alive, you will be there in a year's time with yourself. So whilst, yeah, of course it's good to have relationships with others and not to kind of jump ship on relationships with others for minor details, because that can be a sign of low frustration tolerance, it's also good to kind of know when you are just staying in a situation because you're people pleasing and because you're scared of being on your own. And in those situations, it is good to do what feels the best for you. Not necessarily even feels the best for you, because it probably won't feel good in the moment. It's that like short-term uncomfortability for like a better life long term, which is the same with everything we do with OCD recovery. It's feeling uncomfortable in the short term in order to feel better in the long term. So every situation I look at now, I think, yes, that's probably going to sting doing it now, but how is this going to look in 6 months' time? Yes, I can't see into the future, but the chances are, you know, this relationship that's making me feel doubtful and not doubtful, that was definitely not the right word to use in that situation, because of course if you're suffering with ROCD, you're going to feel doubtful. But this relationship that's not mutually beneficial to me, am I just staying in it because I'm scared of being on my own? If I am, you know, take time as well. That's the main thing I would always say, is take time to consider these kind of choices, because they are the kind of things that, if you have OCD, which if you're watching this, the chances are you do, you can make impulsive decisions based off of your OCD. But in my case, I didn't make these decisions whilst I was suffering with ROCD whatsoever. It had been a long time since I'd suffered with ROCD, and it had been ongoing for a long period of time, and I knew that situations just weren't right for me, and I was clinging on to them because I didn't want to be alone. And, you know, it was just, it wasn't healthy for me. And I think admitting that and kind of taking yourself into the unknown, because that's all we can do, because everything's you need to go with uncertainty with everything, because everything is uncertain. And also sticking by your choices. So, you know, if you've kind of realised a relationship isn't for you, ended it, and 6 months later you're there going, oh, should I have done that? Oh, I don't know. You know, you've made that choice, and you do kind of need to stand by your conviction of your choices sometimes. I think in my case, that's what's worked for me anyway, is kind of, when I make decisions about things like that, leaving it like a long period of time, so that I know there's no kind of OCD rash decision going on in my brain. You know, kind of looking at how I am as a person. So also, I think people change, and that's like something that we don't account for, is like if you're in like a long-term relationship, Like, people change over time, and it's like silly to assume that people will change and like grow in the same way. Like, not every relationship, friendship has to be permanent, but staying in them sometimes can just feel really, really comfortable, and in reality it's not what you actually want. I know this is probably a really triggering video for people with ROCD, because I'm kind of going with the opposite of what you should be doing with ROCD, and kind of trying to work on things a bit more. But I'm coming more from the sense of people pleasing, more from the sense of staying in situations and putting your all into them just because you don't want to be on your own, you feel like you have to, you want to be liked. So for me, that was more my experience. And yeah, it's individual to everyone. Like, everyone has certain things that they're scared of, and in those cases they do always need to be dealt with like in a different way. So I've always kind of gone with the rule of thumb that whatever situation I'm dealing with, whilst I was like heavily in the midst of OCD, and whatever my like frantic, oh, I must do this one, like this is how I have to respond to that. Doing the opposite was always quite a good measure for me. Thinking, well, actually, if I'm like desperate to do this, I probably need to go the opposite way. But again, not relying on that, because it can swap, it can change. OCD is a tricky one to navigate, as we all know. And yeah, it's important that whilst you're doing that, you're kind of seeking the right guidance and getting help with it where you can, because it is really hard to navigate on your own. And I tried to do that for a very, very long time, and it wasn't working. I needed someone who knew what they were doing to help me with it. And then once you kind of know the tools, it does become so much easier to manage on your own. And then you get to the point where I am now, where there's nothing really there anymore. Like, I can have the odd little trigger, and as long as I do absolutely nothing, as long as there's no compulsions whatsoever, and I just carry on as normal, the tools will kind of jump in there and just sort it out for me before it even becomes a thing. Which took me a long time to get to that place, but it's most definitely doable. So thank you very much. And if you want to get help with your OCD, if you just pop an email to phil@ocdrecovery.com to inquire about the one-to-one coaching services. And I'll see you on the next video.